students, today we'll be discussing the political philosophy in the Mahabharata, which is an important literary source of Hindu political thought. The basic objective of today's discussion is to give you an insight into the political precepts contained in the Mahabharata, the importance of ethics and morality in politics, and the relevance of these ideas in the creation of a strong political system. For the convenience of discussion, I have divided the entire topic into a number of segments. Firstly, I'll introduce the text. Then we would move on to the political and social principles. Then the emphasis on societal crisis and how the Mahabharata addressed that. Then we would move on to the importance of individual. Why were all the different characters in the Mahabharata so very important and significant for this entire epic? Then we would move on to the philosophical principles governing political and social life. And then we would move on to politics, statecraft, and finally to the concept of political obligation in the Mahabharata. Let us start with the text, students. The Mahabharata is one of the largest literary texts in existence. Originally composed by Vyas, it is also called the Shato-Sahasri Samahita, a collection of 100,000 verses in Sanskrit. Students, now there is no consensus among the scholars regarding the original date of composition of this epic. Some scholars have tried to establish the fact that this epic evolved over a period of a number of centuries from 400 BC to 400 AD. There are others who try to project a different time period for this. Based on astronomical data found in the epic, the two eclipses separated the 13 days took place during the war, and hence some have dated the events of the Mahabharata around 3000 BC and others have dated it around 1500 BC. There exists no consensus among the date of composition. Nevertheless, the epic is exceptionally significant for students of political science to understand the political principles and the importance and significance of ethics in the epic itself. Now, research scholars opine that the original work was called Jaya, written by Vyas, to commemorate the victory of the Pandavas over the Kauravas, which was a small work comprising of 8,000 verses. Later on, the work was revised and extended and called Bharata, a work of 24,000 verses by Vaishampayana, who was a disciple of Vyas. And this work was recited during the Sarpa Yagya, the serpent sacrifice of Janmejaya, who was the great-grandson of the hero Arjun. Hence the name of the epic today, Mahabharata. Let us now try to understand that this epic, which comprises 18 parvas, what are the contents of each of these parvas and why is it significant for us to study them? The first parva is the Adi Parva, where the characters are introduced, the tales and pertaining to the characters and the rise of the Pandava kingdom and in Indraprastha. The second is the Sabha Parva or the assembly, where the gambling match, the match of dice, between the Kauravas and Pandavas were played, leading to the Pandavas losing their fortune. The third Parva is the Van Parva, their exile of the Pandavas to 12 years. The fourth Parva is the Virata Parva, which is 1 year in hiding as per the terms of losing out in the game of dice. In the Virat Parva, they led a life of incognito, in hiding, in the king of Matsya's kingdom. The next Parva, student, is the Udyog Parva, which was an effort for negotiations of peace between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The Bhishma Parva begins with the war, the famous war of Hastinapur, the first 10 days of battle, along with the composition of the Bhagavad Gita. The next Parva is the Drona Parva, who was the second Kaurav commander, and which also describes in detail the next 5 days of battle. The next Parva was the Karna Parva, who was the third Kaurav commander, which describes the next 2 days of battle. The Shallu Parva, who was the fourth Kaurav commander, which describes the 18th day of battle. Next comes the Swaptika Parva, which describes the ambush on the 18th night. The next Parva was the Sri Parva, the devastation, the killing, the assassination of hundreds of people led to the wailing of widows losing their husbands, their sons. The next Parva is the Shanti Parva, which is essential significance for us because this Parva is the book of peace, which also tells us a discourse on statecraft and governance. It is the Shanti Parva, which is a discourse between Pitamaha Bhishma and Yudhishthir on the art of statecraft. The 13th Parva, student, is the Anushashan Parva, which gives us a discourse on the organization of the state. The next Parva is the Ashwamedh Parva, which refers to the conquest led by the Pandavas establishing their dominion. The next Parva is the Ashram Parva, renunciation, stories where the elders of the clan retire. The next Parva is the Maushala Parva, which refers to the stories of the end of the Krishna clan. Next is the Mahaprasthanika Parva, where the Pandavas retire to a life of renunciation. The final Parva, the 18th Parva, is the Swarga Arohanika Parva, where the ascent to heaven of the Pancha Pandav and Draupadi start. It was only Yudhishthir who could enter the gates of heaven where he was challenged, but he could successfully counter it, and with this, the Mahabharata epic narrative comes to an end. Now, students, for the purpose of our analysis, let us concentrate on the Shanti Parva, which is the 12th Parva of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata contains writings on a broad spectrum of human learning containing morality, ethics, religion, politics, statecraft, governance. It also contains a number of stories, folklore, which are woven into a grand, elaborate narrative. Shanti Parva, which is the 12th Parva, is a discourse between Pitamaha Bhishma and Yudhishthir, when Bhishma was lying on the battlefield awaiting his death. The discourse is one of the profound discussions on ideas on statecraft and polity. It covers a wide range of ideas. The Shanti Parva comprises of 365 chapters divided into a number of sub-parvas. Essentially, there are 3 major sub-parvas. The first sub-parva is the Rajdharma Anushasana Parva, which speaks about the duties and obligations of the king and governance. The second sub-parva is the Apada Dharma Anushasana Parva, which speaks about the duties of the king during distress. The third sub-parva is the Moksha Dharma Parva, which speaks about renunciation and salvation. The political philosophy in the Mahabharata. Indian political ideas contained in ancient literary texts emphasize a lot on morality and ethics, and the Shanti Parva is not an exception. In fact, ancient writers were conscious of the creation of an ideal society, and the ideal society would create the base for a strong foundation of Indian polity. Let us look into the first principle contained in the Mahabharata, the discourse between morality and immorality. Unlike the Ramayana, students, which only exemplifies the good over evil, the ideal king, Ram, the ideal brother, Bharat, the ideal father, Dashrath. In fact, all the characters were complete personalities in the Ramayana. However, the Mahabharata, in its contrast, brings out and celebrates both the negative and the positive vices of each character. In fact, both the victors and vanquished have been described in all their vices as well as virtues, perhaps reflecting the fact that what mattered in life was neither victory nor defeat, but leading a heroic life of attainment. This is clear from two important facts. Krishna, who was considered to be the incarnation of God, had also witnessed in his own life the destruction of his capital and the tribe. In fact, he also met death at the hand of an ordinary bowman. Similarly, Arjun, who had won the war, one of the greatest archers, described in all his attainments, finally had to suffer an ignominious defeat at the hands of Bhils on his way back to Hastinapur from Dwarka, where he had gone to escort the wives of Krishna after the latter's death. These two incidents are proof of the fact that the Mahabharata is a treatise which is practical in its nature and applicability. The second philosophical principle that we'll discuss now is dharma, which was the basis of politics and society during the days of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Dharma is defined as a person's position in society and the role that he plays. The Shanti Parva emphasizes on individual roles, the role of a son, daughter, husband, wife, father, mother, each of which determine human relationships. In fact, the roles come with predetermined laws that the characters are supposed to live up to. In fact, if you look into the storyline, it was this dharma that Draupadi calls out during the dicing sequence of her disrobing. It was this dharma which keeps the Pandav brothers quiet when Yudhishthir loses out one by one in the game of dice. The question of dharma haunts the Pandavas even after the fateful war. Despite the fact that the Pandavas won the war, dharma was an integrating principle in the Mahabharata. Another important aspect of dharma was Varna dharma, the emphasis of four dharmas and their corresponding activities, which was essential for the smooth functioning of the societal system. The Brahmanas were supposed to be devoted to the study of Vedas, the science of morals. The Kshatriyas were supposed to engage themselves in providing protection. They were supposed to reflect power. The Vaishyas were supposed to engage themselves in cattle rearing, agriculture, the Shudras in the art of providing services to others. It was believed that when each class performed their respective functions, an harmonious society could easily be built. Students, this is quite similar to Plato's description of threefold division of society, where he spoke of warriors, guardians, and artisans. In fact, every person situated in a particular varna had to fulfill the duties of that varna. Coming to the next philosophical principle is the distinction between good and evil. The Shanti Parva emphasizes the fact that good and evil do coexist. Human life is essentially a precarious balance between good and evil, between tendencies which uplift us as well as take us down. These are the Devik tendency, the divine ones, and the demonic tendencies, the Asuric ones. In fact, the Mahabharata stresses the fact that every individual possesses these two potentials, the Devik and the Asuric. It is the duty of the state, society, Varna, family to ensure that our Devik potential actualizes and the demonic or Asuric potential is relegated to the background. The Mahabharata is a text which also addresses societal crisis, principles of resolving social disputes. In fact, the Mahabharata stresses on the man's decline and the coming of the Kali Yuga. In fact, through the different narratives, Mahabharata brings out the different levels of crisis with different representation. Law and order problem, caste inequalities, principles of hereditary kingship, all these questions have been dealt in much detail in the Mahabharata. The text, being a practical one, focuses on the fact that one wrong decision may have a cascading impact on others too, including the society and the polity. The next principle that the Mahabharata entails is a dilemma between right and wrong. It discusses the moral dilemma which every individual faces. The right course of action, the right decision to be taken at the right point of time. For instance, the dilemma faced by Arjun in the battlefield to fight against his own brethren. But then he also had his duty to be a Kshatriya. As a hero, he must wage a war for the everlasting fame of his deeds. In fact, it is this obsession for duty, regardless of the consequences, which leads Krishna to give up his kingdom after the death of Kansa, to act as a mediator between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, to avert a war, not to save the kith and kin in Dwarka who had run amok with power. He was at the side of Arjun when Dwarka was facing problems. Students, coming to the next important aspect discussed in the Mahabharata, that is the concept of adharma. Not only dharma, but adharma has been discussed in detail. It is the violation of dharma which leads to societal crisis and decline. Disorder, adharma, is the result of unrighteousness, arrogance of power, which we have seen in the form of Duryodhana's decisions. And the purpose of this entire epic is not so much to discuss before us the transcendental life, but it is to tell us how do we avert adharma, how do we avert societal crisis. Students, the war of Hastinapur was not for political expansionism, but for restoration of order, to determine who has the power or the right to rule. In fact, it was a response to a society deeply ridden in crisis. The next important aspect is what is the root cause of conflict in all our lives? Mahabharata says that all conflicts are the result of greed, which have been exhibited by Duryodhana, or say outrage by Yudhishthir, when he took up the challenge despite knowing that he would be defeated against Shakuni. Both greed and outrage stems from insecurity, students. Insecurity, again, is a result of poor understanding and lack of faith in oneself. We need to accept life as it is, students, and we can ensure that we can avert conflicts only when we do not try to control things which are not in our favor. Next important aspect is time and destiny. Students, Mahabharata says that destiny is shaped by time and faith. Destiny is unalterable. You can't change it. Even foreknowledge of events about grievous wrongs cannot be changed because every event in life is predestined. In fact, this is a failure of human endeavor that gets established with the notion of predetermined faith. The characters in the epic do not give up when faced with a dilemma, but they go through the struggle. They go through the struggle of choosing a path and suffering the consequences when they adopt a wrong one. Coming to the emphasis on individual attainments, the text focuses on each individual character with finesse and art. Vyas says that every individual is important. There is no conflict in the life of a yogi or a homemaker and a householder. While some are good in meditation, some are good in household work. Some can attain moksha to spiritual attainment. Some can attain it by living within a home life. Therefore, what is important to Vyas is the spirit of the work. And it is the spirit of work that actually helps you to attain moksha. So every individual, wherever he is, in whatever form he is, he should do the duty that he is supposed to do. Coming to the next important part of our discussion, student, what is politics? Vyas says politics is the basis of all activities. Politics is the basis to maintain anarchy, do away with anarchy, and maintain caste order. It is vital for the sustenance of the societal system. It is the various ways through which the unacquired is acquired. The acquired is guarded well. and the guarded is distributed well. In fact, without politics, society cannot exist. In fact, there is a complementary relationship between society and politics. Associated with politics is another principle, that is political obligation. The Mahabharata emphasizes on the right of the people to dethrone and depose a king if it does not fulfill the aspirations of the people. In fact, the Anushasana Parva stresses the fact that the people have the right to take up arms and slay the king who fails to fulfill the duties of a king. Next important aspect emphasized in the Mahabharata is right to property. Property is conceived to be the creation of the state. A distinction is made between possession and ownership. It is the duty of the state to protect the property. The state has the right to take away the property from wicked people because property should always be acquired by virtuous means. The king has the responsibility to provide security of the property of the people. Students, the Mahabharata, unlike the Ramayana, does not speak about ideal forms. It is rather a practical treatise. In the Ramayana, God is the center of the narrative. In the Mahabharata, the individual is the center of the narrative. There, the humans occupy the center stage. The Mahabharata portrays good and evil, dharma and adharma, right and wrong, the consequences of man's temptations, futility of war, which makes it so practical. In the Mahabharata, each character of the epic has a different temperament, has a particular moral attitude which shapes his destiny and fate. The conflict between the characters in the epic becomes actually a conflict between two value systems. Scholars consider the Mahabharata to be itihas. It is not history, students, as we conventionally understand it. It is an account of life as it was and life as it should always be. Itihas is timeless, Sanatan. The sages consider Mahabharata to be the fifth Veda, the final whisper of God. Let us conclude the text. Mahabharata, as we have understood it, is a text with deep cultural and political significance. It has wider ramifications covering various aspects of individual life. It has brought about various political and social themes through an interesting narration of events, incidents, persons, and places. Each character has a story to tell. The important themes highlighted is dharma, justice, war, ownership, hereditary kingship, property, the value system, the decline of society. In fact, the Mahabharata is highly realistic in nature. It is an epic which spans across several successive generations. Let us quickly sum up what we have studied today. We have studied the text, the Shanti Parva in particular, the diverse values needed for human development. We have also focused on adharma, dharma, the balance between the two, the emphasis on varna dharma, how fate and destiny shaped the characters' individual attainments. And finally, students, we studied two very important political principles, that is, politics as the basis of society and the concept of political obligation, which are highly contemporary in nature. Thank you.